Chapter 1 of the novel, called Edinburgh and Leith, Robert Meldrum, our narrator, explains why he left Scotland for France. These reasons give us a small insight into the problems of parish life in 17th century Scotland. Robert Meldrum is the fictional young minister of the parish of Corstorphine near Edinburgh. Notice how I said near and not in. Today, Corstorphine is a thriving suburb of Edinburgh, but back in the 17th century, Corstorphine was a village separate from the city of Edinburgh. Indeed, before we are introduced to the nitty-gritty of parish life in Scotland, Meldrum gives us a flavour of the clouds of impending war that are hanging over everyone in Britain and Europe, which play a significant role in his move to France. He states that it was in April 1672 when he made the move to France, the same month that Louis XIV declares war on the United Provinces. Of course, this is the start of the Franco-Dutch War, a major military conflict between France and the United Provinces that lasted for 6 years and provides some context to the novel. However, Meldrum's main reasons for moving lie closer to home, as he indicates that all is not well with his ministry in Corstorphine. Although Meldrum enjoyed his work amongst his parishioners, such as baptism, marriage, and visiting the ill and dying, he complains that the church is overcrowded due to the expansion of the village. Meldrum is overworked and is feeling the burdens of greater responsibility as he tries to do his duty to an ever-expanding population. Meldrum states that his church was full every Sunday, but it is doubtful that this was due to his sermons or his care as an episcopal minister, as episcopacy became the form of worship throughout churches in Scotland after the Restoration. Loyalty to this form of church worship ran in parallel with loyalty to the monarchy, and as such any deviation from either was considered as an act of rebellion or dissent from the authorities. This is why Meldrum is reluctant to take personal credit for having a full church. Indeed, he hints that some within his congregation are there under duress. This disillusions Meldrum further. He admits that some of his listeners to his sermons are actively engaged, and others were motionless, which was standard practice at the time, and not at all unusual. Then there is Mr. S., an active covenanter, who attends the service to gain information about the ill practices of episcopacy in Meldrum's church, and feeds this information back to his conventicle. Again, this is not unusual for the time, as the Covenanters met in secret groups outside regular services of the Restoration Church in Scotland, conducting their own services and actively plotting the downfall of episcopacy in Scotland. Covenanters like Mr. S. wanted to restore Scotland's pledge to the Covenants and fully establish a Presbyterian church structure, abolishing episcopacy and the bishops. To aid this process, Mr. S. sits in the church service taking notes so he can actively rebut Meldrum's teachings. Many Covenanters did take sermon notes, but usually it was for their own private study. However, Mr. S. challenges Meldrum openly and publicly in the street to undermine his authority and position in the community. Disputes between Covenanters and Episcopalians did take place as both groups clashed with each other, resulting in open armed conflict a few years later. Again, if you want to know more about this, listen to the podcast in Season 1, Religion in Early Modern Scotland. These repeated challenges and the undermining of his position in the community is one of the key reasons why Meldrum leaves Scotland for France. Meldrum also has contempt for those who sit at the back of the church too, not listening to the service at all, but sharing village gossip instead. Indeed, church services were a time when the whole community of the village would come together in the week. However, Meldrum's real contempt is reserved for Mr. D, who runs a betting stall at the back of the church. Now, you probably think that this was a product of my imagination. you are wrong. In his excellent study of religious life in Ireland, entitled Devoted People, Professor Raymond Gillespie detailed one church which had a regular betting stall at the back of the pews. This is where I drew inspiration from with regards to Mr. D. Despite his attempts to clamp down on social drinking and betting during his church services, the problem returns, leading Meldrum to believing that he is failing in his duties towards his parishioners and community. Indeed, this is reflective of the Scottish Reformation itself and its attempts to instill godly behaviour amongst the people of Scotland, and continually failing in its ambitions. This is not helped, in Meldrum's view, due to the behaviour of his patron Lord Forester. Lord Forester was a real person, and was the major landowner in Corstorphine, yet as stated in the novel and is in documented sources, Lord Forester was an avid drinker and gambler. Meldrum states that the social behaviour of his patron and leader of the community does not make his work as a minister any easier. If that wasn't enough, Forester was also a Presbyterian and Covenanter, but as the major landowner in Corstorphine, he would have been bound by law as the heritor or patron of the parish to fund Corstorphine's minister regardless of personal religious preferences. For our fictional character Robert Meldrum, he feels that everything is false, a charade. If this was not enough, Meldrum is also fighting a battle against poor or ailing church infrastructure, with the church building crumbling and needing maintenance. This was commonplace throughout the British Isles and Ireland. It was a problem that the church authorities struggled with, regardless of which form of religion, whether that be Anglican, Episcopalian or Church of Ireland. In Scotland, the issue had been a problem since the very early days of the Scottish Reformation in 1560, and continued throughout the early modern period, whether Covenanters or Episcopalians were in charge. Looking back and justifying his move to France further, Meldrum details how his patron Lord Forester undermined his position as a minister by encouraging Meldrum's parishioners to join a conventicle and transfer their allegiance to the Presbyterian faith. This is the last straw for Meldrum, and he leaves Corstorphine in seek of a new position and a new life. In retrospect, reflecting upon his decision, Meldrum is very grateful that he left Corstorphine when he did, as his patron Lord Forester was murdered by a woman he was having an affair with. This is a real murder case that took place in 1678. By this time, our fictional Robert Meldrum is already well established in France.
This podcast is the copyright of History Gateway Limited, UK.